color temperatures is one of those things where it's culturally driven. If you have a bulb that's a fixed color temperature, your odds are you're not going to get it right. It's not what the homeowner wants. That we know that 86% of people are upgrading their lighting after they move into the home, very similar to stat you had. So what do you do? What are the options? And that's really where Circadian is getting into, or even just being able to have a fixture that you can choose the color temperature easily.
All right, welcome back. This is going to be a fun session. So I want to preface this by saying that 3 of us on this panel work in the luxury space. 2 of us work in the high volume space. And it's a little bit unusual for us to present options that may not be options for you in some of these sessions, but I think it's really important. And if you followed the course of technology throughout history, the things that we buy today used to be really, really expensive, and they're really, really inexpensive. And anybody that's been in the integration business knows in the old days, if you wanted a door speaker with a camera and a doorbell, you bought all 3 of those components and some custom software and bits and pieces. And for about $4,500, you built yourself a Ring doorbell that you can get for $99 right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we talk about lighting in terms of what's available now, what the standards are, how LEDs have really changed the game in lighting. And so we have some experts on this panel to talk about that. And then we'll talk about how to bring it down market and where we're starting to see some of these advances in lighting and lighting controls trickle into lower cost products. So this is our panel for today.
Joshua Roberson, JascoPro. We're a U.S.-based company, family still run, about 400, 500 employees out of Oklahoma City. And this is my 22nd version of this show.
Wow.
So I've been doing this for some time, and my 32nd year in the industry.
Liz Womack with Hunter Douglas, North America. I'm now currently out of Northwest Minnesota, formerly Texas. Hunter Douglas has been a part of this show since it started in 2014. I came on into a strategic partner group to specifically support and drive a partnership with builders such as yourself, just right after COVID. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Ashley Jacobson from Visual Comfort, formerly System 7, an integrator out of Boston. I am the Director of Design for Visual Comfort nationally, and we're focusing on really bringing lighting controls, shading, and design to the country with a seamless approach. I've been doing this about 16 years now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about Visual Comfort and System 7 and what happened there?
Sure, yeah. So Visual Comfort, some of you might know them. They are a lighting manufacturer for recessed lighting and decorative lighting. And they always had a focus on lighting design. And so for the last couple of years, System 7 had been putting controls in all of their showrooms and really trying to tie together the idea of control of light with the kind of lighting design approach. And so in February of last year, Visual Comfort acquired our lighting, shading, controls, and design portion of our business to incorporate it into their lighting design company itself. The audio video side of our business got spun out and is now only locally in the New England area. So it's been a great evolution.
So now you've got showrooms all over the country.
We do, yep. So we have showrooms in 48 states, and we focus on all things from, mid-level design work and lighting and controls all the way up to that luxury high-end focus.
And we can see some of the stuff we're going to talk about today.
You sure can.
There we go. What do buyers of homes, whether they're luxury homes or production-built homes, want? Natural light is crucial, especially the kind in the can. But this is a real statistic that 74% of home buyers consider homes with poor lighting as non-viable options. If you've ever looked at photographs of existing homes on Zillow, the ones you scroll right past are the ones that aren't properly lit. The photographs that you look at are the ones that are well lit, where you feel like the rooms are open and airy, and you get an understanding of space and lighting in that space. It's a big factor in remodel homes. I've harped on this for a couple of days now. You probably heard me talking about this yesterday. So I'll try and drive that point home some more. 87% emphasize the importance of integrating natural elements into the home design. That follows right along with what we talked about earlier this morning with outdoor spaces coming indoors. And we're going to talk a little bit about that again with outdoor light coming indoors in this session. So lighting that emulates natural lighting cycles. You've probably heard people, not just me, talk about this for a few years now. We've got a lot of information on circadian rhythm lighting today to go through. Not just how it works, but the benefits of having that in your model homes. Then 67% express interest in controlling lighting via apps and or other applications, voice, keypads, and what have you. if you're not offering lighting controls in your products, your projects, I guess you're already behind the curve. It is not just an up-and-coming product. It's almost now a necessity, I would say.
People expect that. We all go into hotels, right? And they now have lighting controls in them, right? And hotels make you feel good. Restaurants make you feel good. And it's because of these layers of light and the ability to control that light naturally and artificially together. I think it's really important to focus on that. Absolutely.
Even grocery stores.
Yeah.
This is something that I've talked a lot about in the last couple of years. Is grocery stores they've started to remodel, particularly in produce. They're taking out old incandescent lighting and putting in, high color temperature, high CRI value lighting to make their produce look better. And it does. And I think, as consumers, we're all subjected to high quality lighting. We might not know about that, or, do I tell my mom about high quality lighting? Maybe not. But as consumers, we all understand it and appreciate it without having to know the terms. So it's just one of those universal things.
And I'll just add, even being we're all home buyers and owners ourselves, nobody wants to move in and act like they're in a fishbowl, right? You are moving in, sweaty, hot, excited, and you go get out of your nice, beautiful shower, and you call your husband, true story, I need the beach towel on the window fast. I forgot. So we love our natural light. A lot of people choose their lot when you have them first pick their lot based on, the position of the sun may matter to them. And then also the beauty of the outdoors. We want to preserve that, but still have that privacy.
So in addition to the color and the visual elements of lighting, the visual comfort of lighting.
The visual comfort, yes.
Energy efficiency has been a big thing. And I would not say that one LED product is more efficient than another LED product, but LED products in general have created a whole new level of efficiency for lighting that wasn't available to us before. So I don't want to say we solved that problem, but I think we've checked that box. Exterior lighting is becoming a bigger and bigger category, not just things that are on the house like floodlights, but exterior recessed lights, landscape lighting, accent lighting, full season, round the year, round the clock, holiday lighting systems. Am I missing anything?
No, I was going to say, I think that indoor-outdoor living became a reality even more after COVID because, lived in our houses so much. And it's like you needed that outside and you wanted to feel the same way you felt inside, outside, and vice versa. And so I think that's a really big focus. And the holiday lighting is so interesting because I think I have more clients today that want to have like a button that says Halloween to like set up their house, right? That people want things to be easily done, right? They don't want to have to go flip a bunch of switches. They want to press a button and they just want it to do something for them.
That's actually been a significant growth piece for us, is that permanent year-round holiday lighting. And the reality is it's great to have a Halloween button or a Christmas button, but the reality is that you end up living with this lighting year-round and having, alternative to like soffit lighting and a more evenly, spread out light wash onto the home. There's significant curb appeal and keeping up with the Joneses. In fact, we find it very viral that if one person does under Eve lights, that they get 10 people that want to do it. So it's been really appealing from our builder partners' perspective that having a well-lit home in a competitive cul-de-sac environment where you've got 5 builders and you have one house that glows and the others that don't, which one are you going to be drawn to? And the number one time people come and visit model homes is after hours. So it's just there's a whole approach, marketing approach, I suppose, to that as well as the consumer side of it.
So the last bullet point there says that 74% of homeowners perceive the cost of smart home technology to be cost prohibitive. I'd say maybe 75% of this panel might offer things that are cost prohibitive. But that said, like I mentioned earlier, some of these costs tend to get lower when we get into other products and things that you've innovated to do that. So can you speak to that just a little bit about the cost of your product?
It's like anything with technology. Someone comes out with it for the first time. I used to actually use your Ring doorbell example because, when I started in the industry, it was about an $8,000 option to do the same thing as a $100 option. So I think there's a lot of validity to that in a world of technology, and it's always changing. There was a Matter specification that came out. It's joint collaboration from Apple, Google, and Amazon. And that kind of becomes this sort of equalizer that allows technologies to work well with other. And that reduces complexity, and complexity equals cost, and complexity equals challenges for you guys as builders. So the idea is to reduce that and make it more cost efficient or very high value. Because again, if you have an expectation that it's expensive and you're a builder and you're including it, oh my gosh, that's a $10,000 option and it's $1,500 or $500.
Yeah. And I was just going to say with Hunter Douglas and a window covering, the name alone, some people, maybe perceive, but to your point, we are the automation with natural, living with the natural light in the home. And the fact that, you can just use your Alexa, your Google, you get that same benefit. You don't have to have the Control 4s and all that. But a lot of our innovation has been exactly tied around what the light actually does for that buyer. So it truly is an experience. And with the builder partners in this segment here in the room with high volume, one of my top 3 production builders across the U.S. is actually known to be the #1 builder for first-time home buyers, right? Now, are they doing a lot with a motorized shade, people will call it, which is different than an automated shade, which ours does both, doesn't matter. But they do in certain markets, but know that manual options to control lighting, natural light, is still the bigger part that we play in the high volume builder section.
What's interesting is I think that oftentimes people immediately jump to it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
But I think that all of us can agree that every product line has good, better, bests.
Sure.
They have manual versus automated versus motorized. And I think that leads into the idea of getting ahead of it and kind of designing with it would really be of value to everybody because you can budget correctly, right? You're working towards a goal and giving people a little bit instead of it being an afterthought. Because when it's an afterthought, it's even more expensive, right? Incorporating it slightly will give that added value of the automation or just control of the natural light. Yep.
So with that, Ashley, I'm going to ask you to give us a little course here on Lighting Design 101 and tell us about the latest trends in sort of luxury lighting space, and we'll see how that trickles down to the production market.
So obviously, I mentioned visual comfort, right? Giving people visual comfort in their home is really important. And the first thing is the lighting. And so it's interesting because lighting is the only dynamic thing in a home that actually can impact all other things in your home. Think about that for a second. If your lighting is bad, your marble countertop doesn't look good. If the lighting is bad, this table looks washed out, right? And I think oftentimes people do think that lighting is a commodity, which to some level it is, but if it's not done correctly, then it could just become yuck, right? It's not really, there's nothing there, nothing to be added value. So there's a couple of things that are interesting that people sometimes don't know can actually help a space feel so comfortable. And one of them is placement. And so when we talk about lighting, there's 2 types of lighting, and I'll show you an image later about it. One is what's called visibility-led lighting, meaning you light the space so you can move from one end to the other. It can be perceived as gray or washed out. It's not welcoming. And then there's design-led. Design-led doesn't mean that it has to be really costly. It doesn't have to mean it's complex. But it means that you're purposely placing fixtures and you're choosing something that helps elevate your space. So this slide here, you can see 3 things: downlight, adjustable, and wall wash. Now, everyone thinks of a recessed light and they call it a hi-hat, a recessed, a wafer light, cans, right? All of those words, holes in my ceiling. Now, that's because everyone perceives those as downlights. You're lighting the floor. That goes back to that visibility-led lighting. You're just illuminating the space. If you take that same fixture and you rotate it 35 degrees to a wall, you get reflective light. It automatically makes you feel comfortable. Now, we've all been to a high-end restaurant or even a mid-level restaurant, right? And you walk in and you're like, I want to eat here, right? It's because they've placed lighting in a way that it makes you feel comfortable. Our brains want that. We want to feel welcomed. We want to feel like we're relaxed. And things like indirect lighting give you that. So you'll see in the middle picture here, we rotate that fixture slightly, we start to light art. We start to light walls. And so by just tweaking positioning, you can elevate a room drastically. So you could still have the same 4 fixtures in the space, but take 2 of them and point them at the 6-foot wall. Automatically that space feels welcomed. And so placement is a really important thing that everyone in this room, from high volume to luxury, can do by just slightly adjusting the layout of the lighting in the space.
I think that's so true. Because, a lot of times when we deal with production builders, It's very much a price discussion. Oh, did I mention price?
Right.
And I certainly understand that, but what you're really suggesting is sort of trading dollars and being more strategic about the placement to produce an overall better experience. And I think that's really valuable.
Right. People think placement might be complex, but it's not. It's about choosing, think about it as painting the room. We often use the word of lights painting the space, right? And so if you look at the space and you say that wall is blank, let's light it, right? Make it something more than it is. And so we'll see in this next slide here, what I'm trying to show is adjustability. So most fixtures, there is an adjustability option. And I know Josh will get to some options on how fixtures, what options are, but all different price points from the $70 fixture up to the $700 fixture, there is an option to adjust. And it might just mean that it doesn't adjust all the way to 40 degrees like you see here, but there's some degree of adjustment. And you can see how impactful a downlight where that wall is gray changes to a 40-degree tilt and the wall is illuminated. So adjustability is a really important thing when you're thinking about lighting. The next thing that I think is important is what's called performance. So again, going back to that design-led lighting, the two things that makes design-led lighting is placement and performance. And performance is what is that fixture doing for you? And one of the simplest things we need to think about is color temperature, right? And, back in the day, you go and buy an incandescent light, the color temperature is the color temperature. But now with LEDs, you have to make a decision. What do you want your space to feel like? And so you can see here, 2,700 Kelvin, which is replicating an incandescent light bulb, but the closest to it, to 3,000, which is halogen. What do you want your space to feel like? There's no right or wrong, but if you pick 3,000, it's crisp and clean, your whites are vibrant, your marble countertop looks beautiful. The 2,700 makes the wood tones pop, right? So if you're designing a home, a model home that has lots of dark woods, maybe you do want to pick 2,700, or maybe you want a fixture that does more than that. But at the end of the day, making these little adjustments and decisions will make your finishes pop.
So Josh, you can speak to that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm daydreaming about what you're saying is, model homes, so many builders put so much time and emphasis on their showroom, and that's their statement piece, right? There's a reason why if there's a model home in a park, they sell more models of that model home. And so, there's so much design work and thought put into it. And, to your point earlier, that if that same consideration was put into the actual lighting elements, the plan shades, there's so much that get involved. Color temperature is one of those things where it's culturally driven.
Yeah.
If you have a bulb that's a fixed color temperature, your odds are you're not going to get it right. It's not what the homeowner wants. That we know that 86% of people are upgrading their lighting after they move into the home, a very similar stat you had. And so, it's just one of those things that you're never going to get it right. So what do you do? What are the options? And that's really where Circadian is getting into, or even just being able to have a fixture that you can choose the color temperature easily. So it really does change. I mean, I talk a lot about going to performance and like a live play, and everyone's excited. What do? They start dimming down the lights, they change the color temperature, and you get calm. And then the play or whatever performance starts, and it's robust and in your face. If it's a concert or whatever, there's intentional things with lighting. I could go into a whole dissertation, which I'm not going to, but education. There's been all kinds of great studies about education in lighting color temperatures, and basically what they found out is that if you lower the color temperature like a 2,700 to start your day, the kids are calming down. 30 minutes later, they go to around 4,200 Kelvin, which is a kind of a crisp white, and their energy levels are great. Their retention is better, and they in the study, Harvard did it. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Phillips. In that study, they actually showed test performance increases by 38%. So color temperature, we like to say color changes everything, but color temperature and lighting really changes everything. So,
and just one more little quick point, what we didn't touch on is that most of the light fixtures that people are installing in the ceilings today are color selectable, with a maybe 4 or 5 temperature range, but those selections are made above the ceiling.
Yes.
Which is hugely inconvenient. So at least to your point, if you don't know what you need or what your buyer needs, with an adjustable fixture, you can do it easily with an app after it's already
correct.
Correct.
And then the next is dimming. And so you were just talking about dimming. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I walk into a house and there's no dimmers on the wall. And so that could be the smallest adjustment that you could add to a home, and it could make the whole space feel differently, right? And so I had a client building a new house, living in a rental, and literally came into our space and was like, they have no dimmers in my house, right? Full intensity. It automatically makes you want to shut your lights off. And now you're living in a dark house. So you've just invested in all of this furniture, these tables, all of these beautiful things, and you just made your house dark, right? And it's because nobody wants glary light in their eyes, and they automatically feel that way because there's no adjustment. They might not have the right color temperature. They can't dim. They're not placed correctly. And so by thinking about these little tiny things to make those adjustments, give your client a dim, or the buyer a dimmer on the wall for their living room, that automatically makes them feel like they're getting something more than they could have. So these images here are interesting because if you look under the one that says visibility, you can see that office is lit, right? Someone could work in that office. The cabinets are, lit. You can see the items on the shelf, but it's flat. It is not three-dimensional. It doesn't have depth. You can't see the quality of the millwork behind that desk. But then if you look at the three images on the other side, you can see how that the fixtures are placed in a way where they're illuminating the stone, they're illuminating the bench, they're illuminating the art. Now, it's the same amount of fixtures. You see 3 fixtures on the office side and there's 3 fixtures on the other side. All we've done is pointed them at the wall and have given them the ability to dim intensity. And you automatically make the space feel comfortable. You want to be in that house with that stone wall. You want to sit on that bench in front of that artwork. It's inviting. And so by thinking about those slight differences, those are really important things to make a home want to be sold, basically, is the easiest way of describing it. And it's not that hard. And Josh and I were talking about like how do people come to figure out what that design needs to be. And they're simple things, right? You can call Josh, you can call me, you can call other manufacturers or designers, and they can give you just little tips. Position the light 30 inches from the wall and centered on the wall, right? Things like that. And you don't have to do it everywhere. You could just do it in the living room. You could just do it in the kitchen. But it will automatically raise the level of value in that home.
Yeah, we as an industry and the contractors that are doing the installs are typically very good at taking a floor plan. So they're like, hey, I saw you guys talk at the event this week. Love to get your input. And I would say, hey, go ahead and send me over a floor plan, or we'll work with your contractor. And it's just you do it once, and then it's like, hey, this is the expectation. So we do it in the model home. Mm-hmm. It's in the field. Everything's same and consistent. It's really not that far of a stretch from how builders are doing work today.
We do that a lot. We have a program of like schematic design where we take floor plans and we, drop symbols on, and it builds a quick budget too. So you can see what that budget is. And we do it a lot for model homes where it's like, this is what the model home would cost at the mid-level. This is the good level. This is the better level. Mm-hmm. And it also gives you kind of this selling feature of if you have these kind of good, better, best designs, you know how to implement it, but you also can use that to the buyers when they're going to buy the next house, right? If they want to upgrade and things like that. In Boston, the Raffles building went up and we went into the penthouses. And there was literally 1 recessed light in the entry and 3 in the kitchen and some pendants and switched outlets and no dimmers. And these condos were selling for $20 million. And the clients are asking us to come in and put a lighting control system in. And next thing we know, we're like, you have to rip out your ceilings. Your lights don't work. This isn't, just let's put a dimmer in. Let's do something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that helps you build layers of light, which is your next slide.
Yes.
To get to you. You want this?
So we've talked about performance, we've talked about placement. That means dimming, that means color temperature, purposely laid out, and then you layer all of those things together. So what are layers? Layers are providing three-dimensional, providing depth to the space, making the space feel three-dimensional. You can see here how you add linear to bookcases. Now you see the whole linear shelf. You don't just see the front. You add a cove light as a grazer in a shower. This shower now feels like it's open with a window above, right? Or even just a little bit of linear around a mirror. You're showing that there's depth in that room. And so these little touches of layers of light really can impact the way a space feels because it doesn't just look flat.
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous, right?
gorgeous.
And it's a small touch. It's not really that much stuff. If you really look at these pictures in that shower, all we've done is put a linear light in a pocket. There's no other lighting in that space, but it immediately makes the space feel comfortable.
So it is pretty remarkable what we can do with lighting. And I think one of the things that we've really quickly, in fact, addressed fixture placement, fixture types, light color. We could talk about this for probably all 5 sessions this week. It'd still not be even scratched the surface. But I think the types of fixtures that are available is kind of an important conversation. And we definitely don't have time to go through all those. But you did give me some information on the JascoPro products. I think it's worth running through this, sort of talking about the different style of light fixtures. There's some gaps in this presentation, so we can jump in and add some things as we go. But I think it's important to talk about the tools we have in our toolbox to make these things happen.
Yeah. And when we developed our light, we've been doing lighting for 16 years. You know, we've tried to build products that are designed for production homes, and you get further and further into more esoteric sizes. And so in general, we have a roadmap of about 50 SKUs, 50 lighting SKUs that will be coming out in the next 3 years. But, you know, the number one bulb in America is an A19. That's going to be in like more of a lamp type application. So we show it on the headboard of a home. Bulbs, you guys might have had some experience with smart bulbs, and sort of one of the challenges in the space is they're only as good as it physically being turned on. And what I mean by that is it physically has to be turned on. And if it's not, there's no power, you go to your app, you're like, you know, trying to make it respond, it's not doing anything. And the nightstand specifically is great. It's so nice to walk into a bedroom and your lamps are on at 50%, and it's great. And then you go to bed and you turn off the switch, and then the next day you're like, hey, my lights aren't working. That's because you killed the power. So we've got some innovative stuff along patent pending, actually. Technology is built into our products where they have the ability to stay on 24 hours a day, and we just tell them to illuminate or not to illuminate, solving that problem. So we have a whole range. So A19 is going to be the number one selling, but then you get into recessed cans, and that's going to be your BR style bulbs. One consistent thing across our lines is they're red, green, blue, white, white. Most smart bulbs are red, green, blue. So RGB, and then W, which is a white, which is a fixed color white. What we do differently and why ours are kind of the Cadillac, especially in the smart bulb range, is we cover the full spectrum of white. So we have 2000 Kelvin to 6500 Kelvin. And what you do is you blend the two to get whatever color temperature you're desiring. So that's a key portion of Circadian that we'll talk about later on. Downlights, these are surface mounts. Boy, oh boy, this really became big during COVID. I think it was a supply chain issue, particularly in Texas, which is where we do a lot of business. And they're not, ours are great, but as a general rule of thumb, if you have a choice of choosing your bulbs, and we wanted to make this educational for everyone as well, we do recommend more of that recessed bulb for a lot of reasons. We have a downlight that's also a great piece. The nice thing about most of these lights, except for the surface one, is that a homeowner could potentially add to the system. So we're going to talk about packages in a little bit, suggested packages. But what we've found out with people is that they get a couple of rooms and they want more. And it's like this constant thing. Wafer lights, again, is another style. You're going to see that more in your semi-custom, custom homes. So we have those available in 4-inch and 6-inch. Again, all the same spectrum. They're also, I forgot to mention, but CRI is a big thing. It's color rendering index. And basically, it's the quality of the light. So the closer you get to 100, the better off. Our sun, which is our circadian light for us as humans, is 100 as sort of a baseline. So most products on the market are 80-ish CRI. We're 92 or greater. Our under cabinet light fixtures are actually 95. So they're exceptional quality of light. And that's where you're going to get your trueness of your colors. Again, that's really particularly important in the kitchen to see the fruit and vegetables and things that you're preparing in a more natural lighting environment. It's a better visual experience. And if you guys, I follow food, you can see my tummy here. But that's a big thing. Is appearance is really has a lot to do with how you perceive food and its quality and its taste. And so in high-end homes, or even in production homes, they're doing these under cabinet lights that really make a huge difference. All app driven. We don't actually have a monthly fee for the service, so they can schedule not only color temperatures but light intensity. And I'll talk a little bit about more that when we get to circadian rhythm.
Yeah, so when we look at this list of fixture types, we're clearly missing a few options. I mean, Ashley had talked about adjustability. There's not an adjustable fixture in that lineup.
Yeah, we actually have it, but it's not in the next 6 months. But yeah, we'll have gimbal, and it is important to absolutely.
I do.
And linear lights. That's
I
another.
was going to say the linear lights,
Yeah.
and if I was to go at like the really high level, it's a linear light, it's a recessed light that can be adjustable, it's or down, and then it's that kind of ambient light, which is decorative, right? Those are kind of your 3 layers that you can work with pretty easily to just elevate a home automatically. One of the things I was going to say about the control side of things is that we've all walked into a house where you have 5 switches on the wall, and the odds are you just hit the first switch and it turns on one light in the room, and you walk away because you don't want to turn on the other 5, or you hit the wrong light. And so a lot of times people think controls add complexity, but going back to that push of a button and being able to turn your strip lighting on, your recessed lighting on, your decorative lighting on, it's actually simplifying life. So when you can do that a little bit, or like the table lamp conversation, I think that's really important because it's actually simplifying something that's actually really complex.
Yeah, scene switches are also a nice enhancement.
Yeah.
So you can reduce all that wall clutter. So if you have 6 gang
Right.
wall plate, with our solution, you can actually have a single gang and digitally assign what you want included into the lighting controls.
Being in the market and traveling, to your point, I have seen high volume builders actually just start with an undermount cabinet lighting. So it's been nice to see that. A little bit of an upgrade at not too expensive, but it just, to your point, it's what sells everything else in that kitchen.
It really,
It's a great, I think it's a great starting point if I was kind of trying to figure out where would I start. So.
And I'm not on your product development committee, right? But I would imagine that you're going to start to see some of these other features we're talking about trickling down into your products, like adjustability, beam angle,
yes,
linear lighting. Those are all probably on your product roadmap.
Yeah, we're about 6 months away from that category of products, but we've got some other pretty neat things coming out as well.
So you just made my point.
Yes, awesome. Yeah.
All right, so we want to touch on briefly some package options, and we're gonna turn it back over to Liz and start talking about shades first since we've been beating lighting to death for the last.
So now I'm just sitting here. No, I'm kidding.
But I would like to talk to the panel about how do we bundle and package this. It might be cost prohibitive, it is, to do a whole house full of this stuff. So how do we get this product into the hands of more people?
It's obviously, being a product that's not required, right, to actually sell the home. But again, as I said, what a disservice if you're not at least offering the option. People don't know what they don't know, and they love what you've put in the model homes. I get those calls day in and day out in those emails. And so what I put together is, and you can call these packages anything you like. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was really pushing back on putting everything in a package just because of the way I like to shop personally, and I have to take my personal out of it. But it does make sense to look at, and this is just from a lot of educating the builders that have educated me and kind of putting myself in their shoes. But if I was just to start, and I have a starter home buyer, the 3 main rooms, and what people want to hear is, hey, do you have a security and a privacy package to start with? And I would just really encourage you, and you've heard a lot of this today, is I'll say it again, they don't know what they don't know, but they can see what they want, but they have no idea of pricing. Window coverings are not changed out, or honestly, as often as carpeting, and it can be a little bit of a price shock. And builders, you guys are putting in sizes of windows. Some are standard in some markets. I can tell you Oklahoma, Texas, the window count and the average window size, the Northeast, but everyone's a little bit different. And no, you can't go to the big box store and think it's going to be a $30 item. It won't fit. It's going to be $30 if it's paper. So if you start with a starter home buyer, you can call it a starter package. We all know the 3 main rooms, right? Where are you going to live? The kitchen, and the living room, and of course the master bedroom. So maybe it's just a privacy and lighting control package for those 3 main rooms. But I will tell you, as they get those few in, and every installer will tell you when they go to measure, gosh, I'm going to go ahead and measure the rest of the other 27 windows, because I guarantee you they are going to want to add maybe after they close. But I will talk about this later, that it is profitability and margin that builders walk away from, and for a lot of different reasons. So I call that the privacy natural light package. The first time move up home buyer, they now see the value. Now they need more. So it's an experience. So our language is very similar. Though, with window coverings, I have to deal with Mother Nature, the weather. So it's just not where you live in the country or what your lot is positioned. It's, what is your weather like? And that's why the innovation with Hunter Douglas is more about, the lighting, how it comes through the fabrics that we select, right? And by the way, you've got to have a strong warranty on these products. You're walking on your floors, you're cutting, vegetables on your counter, but shades, you are moving them. Mm-hmm. And little Timmy is taking markers to them. And, the dog is, that. So there's a lot of different things that you have to take into consideration. But they see the value in how they live with the shades, and they're willing to spend a little bit more. So don't guess for your buyer, what they might want to do, because the third option, people that have been in a couple of homes, now they're ready, could be their last home. By the way, they love all the technology. So they're willing to maybe put the automation in spaces they're more. The guest room, that's a manual option possibly. I have seen casitas and mother-in-law suites and the nannies. Those are becoming more and more popular. So they want things that they can live with some convenience as well, not just the guest or the babysitter. So there's many different ways, but I want to tell you guys, in these 3 packages, because the breadth and depth of Hunter Douglas can be a little intimidating, I can do all 3 packages with, all 3 I can actually do with 1 product. But really it combines 4 products to make up these 3 packages. Mm-hmm. So with working with builders specifically, that's been a big goal of mine. So here we have the effect of blocking direct sunlight while preserving that room's brightness. This is a lot of light finishes in here. Picture on your left is actually looking out to an ocean water. It kind of almost looks like there could be a roller shade on that. But here we did it with a simple horizontal blind. It's beautiful, but it's simple. So very important that they just understand how that comfort. A lot of this we've kind of talked about as well. Sleep quality, circadian rhythm. Again, with high volume production builders, let your buyer decide where they want to spend their money with their finishes and personalization. But we have 1 product, and I'm not here to talk specific about product, but you have to be careful using the word blackout for those sleep qualities. And we've built a product through our honeycomb, which is a phenomenal, it's done very well, because the demand for true blackout experience in the home, not just with the artificial light, but the natural light, has become more and more in demand. And they're kind of tired of gaps. And then now I got to spend money to add drapes. And I love, side channels, but you're actually giving them a quality that they're asking for. Again, if they don't do it with you, they're going to do it with somebody else.
But sorry to interrupt you, but actually this interacts with the artificial lighting also, right?
It matters. So when we look at a lighting plan or we think about a space, we think about all of these things, right? So when a blackout shade comes down, what is happening in this room, right? Yeah. I see the table lamp, right? But are there other functionalities that have to happen when that shade is down? And so when we think about lighting, we want the 2 things to interact as much as possible. It also blends into the whole idea, which we'll get to, the circadian rhythm, because blackout shades, relaxing your body, the light should be dim. All of those things play together on how you feel. Experience.
Yeah, no, in fact, we had to put the lamp on it really is that blackout. You couldn't see that, we wanted, you don't want to sound like you have silly taglines, but I hope that you see the value to your buyer that you bring to them by listening and talking about the natural light needs. And I'll touch on the design build process, but this is a before and after, and this is a sheer shading. And this is part of that product that would be in 1 of those packages that people that love the natural light, but they still need some privacy. And we haven't talked about it yet, but us ladies in the bathroom especially, it's very important how our light is with our makeup application. Kohler, different companies have done a great job with, lighting up now the mirrors. We've all seen that, and we see that. So lights are everywhere. It's touching everything. But we love the before and afters, just to give you an idea. And all these photos and everything are represented on our website. And I will say, your buyers for all of our things that we represent up here, they're shopping. Everyone shops online. So it's very important that you allow us in to educate and work with you and simplify and make things easy, because just to inspire that buyer is what you're trying to do at this point. So where do we fit in? When you are in the room and you're doing the lighting packages or whatever you do with light, and I'm quoting from one of the best builder sales reps I ever met. He works for the builder. I said, I wish I had 500 of you. The first thing he talks about is window coverings and lighting. It's the very first thing. That's a true story. He's in Dallas. And so builders are like, where do we come in? We come in 3 phases, especially if you're going to run any kind of wiring for power, or if you want manual, that's fine. But knowing that in advance, then we need to come in during the plan and design of the lighting. So if you really just talk to your staff and, say, hey, are you comfortable talking about this? And we need to bring the vendor rep in, and we need to do a little bit of education on that, because it's something that we're missing out on. So it's a very easy conversation. So I think this is one of my last slides, but this is an actual multifamily builder in Atlanta. And I was actually there pounding, why? This is how they sell the house with this particular architectural design of these windows. Not only you talk about an uncaptured profit, but look at the challenge this just gave this buyer. These start at $850,000. Beautiful backyard kitchen there. I love to see my neighbor. But this is actually in a community where 2 builders got together, and they actually have a homeowners association. And although these 2 builders did not offer a window covering as part of the option, they are required to put a window covering on these homes 60 days after close. I didn't grab the photo of how many, I'll have to say Dallas Cowboy flags, or, different Green Bay or whatever. Atlanta, I'm in Atlanta, I got to be careful there. But, a lot of bath towels and different things were hung on the outside street facing of these homes. That was just, to me, shocking, very upscale. But, this is, again, I don't want you to just think of profit, but we're all about functionality. And don't you want your buyer, to your point, the best house lit up and everything, they're going to tell 10 other people. So just wanted to grab this photo just to have that conversation, just to put those ideas of everything, it fits into what you do as a builder. If you're an energy efficient builder, but you're leaving off the window covering, I think everyone in here should know by now that the number 1 place in a home that loses energy is through the windows. And I've been in a lot of meetings with Pella and those guys, which is why, my product is certified as the number 1 leader in energy efficient. And so I do sit in on those meetings, because they're trying to upsell your windows that you purchase. And I'm an attachment that just adds value to that. So just some things where we cross over, not just in beauty and design, but do your buyer the best service, and, really tout that on what you bring that buyer to why buy and why build with you. So I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. So we're talking about packages and offerings. And Josh, I think you're probably an expert on this at this point.
Packages, everyone wants a scalable solution, repeatable solutions, particularly in the new home builder space. And so it's like, how do you estimate it? How do you do, what is this going to cost me? That's like my favorite thing. And then there's like, hey, there's 12 windows there, or there's 6 windows, or there's 4. And it becomes challenging, but trying to get through the minutia to come up with a repeatable and scalable solution is primary. And so as manufacturers, we work closely to help create those solutions. Or at least get some data, like, hey, give me your number 1 selling home. Let's use that as a plan to figure out what this might cost you. But one of the things I was going to say, as a person that actually owns Hunter Douglas, shades. I've got some duets. They're gorgeous. And I wish I could have included it in my mortgage. Because of all the great reasons why you get to include things in your mortgage. And so there's just opportunity. Before I go too far on packages as well, we've had a lot of success with our builders when they're wanting to do lighting is incorporating shades as part of that. And it all stems from health and wellness, which is, we've been primed as consumers to be really health and wellness driven because of COVID. It was the industry was leading towards it, but COVID slowed everything down. And then now all of a sudden, so as builders, we were trying to figure out ways like, why would I want to buy a new home? Why wouldn't I buy an existing home? And these are opportunities to build into the home. So, I see this particular drawing, which is really impactful, but, hopefully you guys are going, well, how do I open and shut the shades on the top row? And I've got that in my house, and it's like, I do want them to open and shut. And that's where you get into the automated shades. That's where you get into, I have mine set up literally. So as the sun rises, I'm east and west facing house. That was intentional. I've never heard anyone say that, but that was intentional. And so my shades are doing the appropriate thing. I live in Phoenix, so it's blazing hot. It's particularly in the summertime. So I want my shades on the east side of the house to stay down until it gets to a point where it's not completely flooding my house. So there's a lot of strategy. And then at the end of the day, the opposite, I have that humongous window that's 20 feet up in the air. And it's like, well, I want it open throughout the day, but at the end of the day, I don't. So it's just, there's a lot of things that can happen. And as builders and as manufacturer partners, these are problems that we look to solve, right? And maximize the experience. So packages, like from a lighting perspective, we typically will do a test on the kitchen, the family room, living room. Those tend to be very, very popular. Number one place to upgrade lighting is in the bathroom. By a significant amount. And I thought for sure that wasn't the case. And I'm like, wow. And then I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Same thing with the closet, because people want to take a look at what their clothing and their attire is. And with Circadian, as an example, you can change the lighting to emulate what it would be outside based on the time of day. I've never done that, but...
What's interesting about the Circadian, so there's in New York, the Nike store put in lights that you could do Circadian, and in the dressing rooms, they put morning, daytime, evening, and it increased or decreased their return value because people could actually see their clothes, right? And so same thing with the makeup, right? Like if you have a high quality light on your face, you feel good about yourself, and you leave the house feeling confident, and all those things matter.
It's very true. Paint companies have been doing that for some time, and they would show different color bulbs and what to sort of expect throughout the day, what your lighting will look like, or what your paint will look like with the appropriate lighting.
So we're all on the same page here. Before we dive into circadian rhythm lighting, I just wanted to point something out on this slide again. Liz, I think this is great. Thanks for providing this.
You're welcome.
The importance of all the trades and the designers on the project interacting is all in this slide. So you have an architecturally stunning wall that's all glass, which is probably very expensive, I would imagine, to construct and to supply. But now you've created a heating and cooling problem, potentially. You've created a comfort and light problem, potentially. You've created a very expensive shading solution problem, potentially. And that all goes into I hope it went into the thinking of this design. It may not have, based on what you explained. But all of these things interact. And the technology portion of that is, like you said, you're not going to climb up and pull a chain on that top window. You certainly don't want a 12-foot chain hanging down to the floor from each one of those. So this is the process that we go through as design professionals to make this happen.
Right. And I think getting in as early as possible to help think things through. And again, it doesn't have to be on every home that you're doing, but at least start with one, and then you can replicate it throughout.
And then when we talk about color, we're going to jump into circadian rhythm because I want to make sure we have enough time to cover this. But even, you mentioned earlier, Liz, that the light coming through the shade creates color, right? The fabric creates a color. The amount of light that comes through the shade creates either a dim or an intensity issue. So all these things interact. And I think it's important to have a cohesive and comprehensive solution instead of a whole series of bits and pieces. So with that, I'd love to get into a discussion about circadian rhythm. We've got a lot of slides on this, so I won't linger on them for too long. But if you all want to start riffing on this, that would probably be wonderful.
Circadian lighting, boy, when I first got it, I've always enjoyed lighting and maybe didn't understand the science behind it. Got involved with circadian lighting, human-centric lighting. There's several different
Biophilic lighting.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my least favorite of them all.
And my favorite is circadian affective lighting, and that gets more into the biological and psychological components of lighting. But when I first got into it, I was like, man, stuff sounds like snake oil. And I found out that in 2017, it actually won a Nobel Prize. So there's all kinds of great things. Again, I could speak about it for probably 2 hours, but I'm just, I'm not going to do that. But the thing is circadian lighting is essentially trying to mimic natural lighting. So as humans, we spend over 80% of our day inside of interior lighting. You've got campuses like Google, Amazon, major corporations that have lighting built into their home or into their buildings because of efficiency. Apple is one of my favorite stores to go into, and I went into Apple recently, and I'm like, why am I so excited to be in here? And I'm like, it's not because I want an iPhone 16 because I already have that, but what they found out is lighting really drives excitement. Jewelry stores, I mentioned the produce departments of grocery stores. The thing is that Apple and all the phone makers decided or found out at one point that we're all in bed trying to relax and calm down for the day, and we're playing Candy Crush or whatever it is that you're doing at night, and you got this phone like this close to your eyes, and it's doing blue light, and it's basically telling your body it's noon. And so they're like, hey, we need to do this night shift, and Android calls it something different. But essentially is this like, hey, we need to remove blue light because of this impact that as human beings we have with lighting. And so essentially, if I was to describe circadian lighting, it's mimicking the natural lighting of the home. And that's not only color temperature, but it's light intensity. So those are both very important in that process. So there's a couple of things if you are looking into it. Quality of light, I mentioned CRI. There's something in here about the this is really scientific, nanometers and light effectiveness. And so if you want your body to be able to actually respond to color temperature, you have to hit at least 490 nanometers. So that's a big thing. You also have to have a really what they call high R9 factor, which is its ability to produce reds. So there's a lot of great things. We talk a lot in sales about hot buttons and relative to homeowners and what's excitable to them. And lighting is one of those things that it's almost universally accepted. Whether it's a security play, it's eliteness. The Harvard did this great study on hot buttons, but circadian does a lot of things. There's a health and wellness play for aging in place. So if you have circadian lighting in, like an aging or a memory care facility, there's a reduction of falls by almost 70%, 70. Wow. And so there's some really cool things that have happened with circadian. And so it's becoming more and more mainstream, where 5 years, 10 years ago, it was mansions only. It was just not a really achievable thing. Now we're into the place where homeowners can really add it. As a builder, we talked a little bit about packages, but you can get into packages that are of like $500 for a room. It's all dependent on how many devices are in that room, obviously. But the other neat thing is that historically, you needed to have proprietary wiring. You had to have complex control systems. Our solutions utilize the existing wiring topology of regular homes. So essentially, you can put this in your existing home today, change it out, try it out, and it is amazing. Most people, when they get into it and see it firsthand, they're like, wow, my house looks so much better. And from a builder perspective, again, your showrooms are your showcase and putting it in the best environment possible. RGBWW, I mentioned that's a big portion of it, being able to do the full light spectrum. Color changes everything, and so does color. And what I mean by that is that if you want purple lights, the younger you are, the more likely you want to have some fun with it. If you're decorating inside of your home, being able to just get into the app and change the color is very appealing. So lots of really cool things with that. Quickly going through these slides.
Actually, what are you seeing on the circadian rhythm side?
So one of the things I was going to say is that I find that even without the word circadian rhythm, people like the idea of adjustability, not having to make a decision and be able to consistently change your lighting to adapt to your lifestyle. And so for someone to buy a house and say, okay, 10 years from now, I could change my color temperature, I could adjust those dim levels, that's a selling feature for them because they're not tied into what was put in day one.
For sure.
And so circadian rhythm is the benefit of it, but that flexibility has really, been something that our clients want, right? They don't want to have to make that decision, whereas back in the day, you had to make all those decisions up front. And also, I think that to touch upon the idea of color saturation, one of the things a lot of people don't know is if your light, your LED light is missing certain colors, it doesn't render in the objects you're looking at. So if the light shining on my blue cap here didn't have this color blue, my blue wouldn't look the way that it does, right? And so that's important a lot to people who are buying houses that might have art, right? So being able to adjust the color temperature, to be able to have those color saturations that are in there, that really is an important feature functionality-wise. The other thing too, going back to the circadian rhythm, we had a client put all lights in that could do circadian rhythm because she worked nights. And so she literally had to set her schedule up reverse from everybody else. So when she slept and woke up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to get ready for work, that's like when her day started gradually. And then by 6, it was 5,000 Kelvin. And then it gradually went down. And so for her, it was a selling feature for her because she wanted that feeling of energized.
Well, she never went outside.
Right, exactly. She never went outside.
It works until you go outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, one of the things, and it's very similar to your Nike story, a lot of our builders, maybe want something specific out of it. Again, maybe the hot button is, they want 6,000 Kelvin or 6,500, or this is 2,700. So one of the features we have in our products is wake, work, relax, and sleep. And so that pretty much defines sort of the color temperature for the activity. Having lived with circadian for some time, I love waking up to it. Really enjoy that. I don't like cooking at night at 2,700 Kelvin.
Right.
And that's just me. But I go to my switch and hit the button and do 4,000 Kelvin, and it's great. But, watching TV and relaxing at 2,700 Kelvin, which is an incandescent light essentially, is great. So we have a lot of flexibility. We can do, manual setups. So basically you can emulate, whatever their work cycle is. I live in a high red world where I start with circadian in the day and I end at a different color temperature. And then I get into my bedroom and relax at 2,700 Kelvin or 2,000 Kelvin.
And these are things in your products that can be purchased for pretty cost effective.
For sure. Yeah. We're about $30 a bulb.
Which is pretty amazing to get all that technology in there.
Yeah.
I want to transition into model home discussion for the last few minutes we have here. But one of the things I think is kind of important to discuss is we're talking about circadian rhythm as a function for the person that lives in the home. We really haven't touched on it as a function for presenting the home, right? And when an interior design team works on the house and they're picking out fabrics for couches and sofas and pillows and what have you, for draperies and curtains, I suspect anyone who's ever been to an interior design store has watched the designer take the fabric samples over to the window and hold them in front of the window to get natural light on to really understand what that color looks like. So that's great, except when they take that sofa and put it into a house that's got 2,700 Kelvin lamps in the ceiling, and all of a sudden that blue couch now looks green.
We do that in our showrooms a lot. So we have lights that can fully adjust. And so we'll invite designers in to bring their tiles, their carpets, and we change the color temperature for them. And that helps pick the light and what they want to use because of the tones in their wood and things like that. And so it's really impactful to be able to have that flexibility.
So let's just take the last few minutes that we have and talk about best practices for model homes when it comes to lighting and shading.
I can. One of my favorite bullet points is train the salespeople. So as salespeople, I'm a salesperson. We tend to talk about things that we're really comfortable with and not talk about things that we're not comfortable with. And so giving someone that's really an expert at counters and cabinets and carpet and location and the storyline of why us, they might not have the story or the history or the experience. So training the salespeople is a huge aspect to this. That's a big portion of what we do because you know, if I asked 100 of you in the audience, do you know circadian lighting? You know, a few people would raise their hand. And so if a builder is going to go as far as differentiating themselves with technology, there needs to be an ROI there. There needs to be an understanding. So, you know, I don't ever expect, and I think you guys will agree, that the salesperson is an expert in technology. It's just, hey, just like you did on our community amenities and why we use 2x6s and all these other things. It's like, hey, we've pre-wired the house for shades, or hey, we've got fantastic lighting. So, you know, whatever lighting color temperature you want, and they're demonstrating it. If they can do a 30-second, 60-second demonstration, we're doing so much better than the people that, hey, it's just built into the home and no one talks about it. There's not a lot of ROI there. And literally, we have customers sometimes that didn't know it even came with their house. So from an ROI perspective, which is where I live and breathe, that's really important. How about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, I agree 100%. And I also think that even internally on our team, I try to train our salespeople, talk to the end user as a human, right? So don't have to say like, I use an 18 gauge wire, just say, you have shades and this is how it works, right? Give them the feeling of what the experience is that you just built for them, I think is really important. And we, a lot of times too, for model homes, we'll create like little curated package. So maybe have some fabric samples, or maybe have some like, you know, cell sheets, something to take away, because then the people remember why your home is different than everyone else's.
For sure. And that's really the name of the game, is the remembrance and differentiation.
Right.
So I fully agree.
Yeah, and what builders hear from me, and they kind of take them back because we have such a large option. I only give them 6 colors. 6, that's it, right?
They don't need 100.
By the way, that's just color within a fabric line. I only give them 1 fabric and 6 colors, right? If they want more, sure, we can give more, but you got to have a starting place. So obviously, they spend a lot of money, what you can't see when you build a home. We all know that. We are representing everything they see and how they live and interact in that home, which really sums it up. And, you know, it's an experience. So your models and your design centers should be what you've heard that word, experience centers, design centers, and it should, I find people that choose whites in their shades, really, there's so many whites to choose from, right? So same with the lighting, cool, warm, and all that. So we keep that very simplified. But what I do like is, you know, when they just get comfortable, and this is what I teach, you know, train with people, it's like, you know, you're just asking that buyer, in this living room, what do you need the shading to do for you? And they go, like, nobody ever asked me that before, you know, or when I went to somebody else, they don't care. They're just telling me what they've got, right? So it just shows them that you do care about how they continue to live with that home once they've closed. And I will say, get it in the mortgage. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up as well. It is the best, most cost-effective way that they can purchase their window coverings. And I even have examples of that. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. But again, it's just, why wouldn't you? That's my bottom line.
One more thought, and then I have to wrap this up. Okay. Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just going to say, I also think, you know, you mentioned that everyone comes at night, right? And so shading is sometimes applied afterwards. Lighting is going to be in there no matter what.
Yeah.
So setting that scene to make that impactful moment, and when that buyer comes in, ask them, how do you feel, right? How do you feel right now? That'll be a really impactful moment and a memorable moment.
It's a fantastic question.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
Nobody asks that question.
Yeah.
I ask that question to every client I meet. How do you feel here?
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
Multiple sessions about these topics. I've got 3 great people on this panel who could help you with all these answers to all of your probing questions about lighting and shading. So their information's on the screen along with mine. If you need us after this event, that's how you reach us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.